Bye-bye, Jimmy Kimmel. They say he's on an indefinite suspension, but I beg to differ. I think the guy's actually fired. I think it's over for one Jimmy Kimmel, unless maybe he can get a job on MSNBC. Oh, the new Versant thing that they're going to be spinning off, that's where he should go, because then you can be as opinionated as you want, and you won't have the FCC breathing down your back. Jimmy Kimmel off the air, just as I predicted, right here on this show yesterday. What did we talk about after Benny's interview with Brendan Carr, who runs the FCC? I told you. I said, you know what? This guy's going to go. He's going to be fired. And I can tell you this. Another prediction. Seth Meyers is next. Ladies at The View are like terrified right about now. Terrified that they're also going to be in this predicament. And I'll tell you why. You see, when you're working at a network, it comes with a different set of responsibilities than it does when you're actually working in cable television. Two totally different animals. And of course, streaming, we're a whole other thing right over here. But you know, Jimmy, you can't actually just completely misspeak and mislead the public. You're not allowed to do that. Because guess what? You're on public airwaves. And those public airwaves are governed by the FCC, and thus you were way out of line, saying the things that you did about Charlie Kirk. Guys, we got to talk about what he said because it's pretty bad, and then we're going to talk about what the repercussions are. But first, here's Donald Trump overseas in the UK. By the way, beautiful, beautiful dinner and ceremony there last night. Just unbelievable. I mean, they really just put on quite a show for the President of the United States and the First Lady Melania Trump, who looked stunning as always. But here he is speaking on Jimmy Kimmel moments ago.
Well, Jimmy Kimmel was fired because he had bad ratings more than anything else, and he said a horrible thing about a great gentleman known as Charlie Kirk. And Jimmy Kimmel is not a talented person. He had very bad ratings, and they should have fired him a long time ago. So, you can call that free speech or not. He was fired for lack of talent.
Lack of talent, yeah. Lack of talent, and because of that lack of talent and perhaps a little bit of stupidity, because he clearly wasn't even in or following the news cycle, unless he was, and again, I guess that gets back to his very deliberate misleading of the public. He wasn't very funny. The jokes were written for him, and I would just say, like, he was highly inappropriate, along with being completely misleading and promoting a kind of misinformation or disinformation, if you would, which again, you really shouldn't be doing if you're on network television. Jimmy Kimmel suggests Charlie Kirk assassin was one of the MAGA gang, despite reports of leftist leanings. So the FBI has come out and they have told us how he had been effectively, they believe, radicalized by the leftist group. He had very leftist leanings. We've seen that in the writing, in the text, etc. And yet Jimmy Kimmel was trying to promote a very different kind of point of view, something similar to what we saw Larry Tribe, the Harvard professor, saying days before. But even Larry Tribe was taken out in his tweets because he was called out. Here's what Kimmel said, okay? And by the way, Disney had no choice. They should have done better. They should have done it earlier. They should have done it right away. But they had to wait for Sinclair and Nexstar to step up to the plate. Here we go. Quote, "We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it." Excuse me? Well, that is just a lie. And so when you're lying on network television, you are going to catch the attention of one Brendan Carr, who's the new head of the FCC. And I'll tell you, this guy, he means business. He's a total bad you-know-what. And he went on Benny Johnson, my friend Benny's show. I want to show you a few clips from this. But here's the real hot one that got everyone pretty bothered. Because now the affiliates are going, wait a second, we're going to be in trouble. Like Disney's saying, we're going to be in trouble. They're going to just suspend all of these affiliate licenses all over the country because you got one bad actor doing some really stupid stuff. Jimmy Kimmel, wait for it. Here is Mr. Brendan Carr.
The conduct that has taken place by Jimmy Kimmel, it appears to be some of the sickest conduct possible. As you've indicated, there are avenues here for the FCC. So there are some ways in which I need to be a little bit careful because we could be called ultimately to be a judge on some of these claims that come up. But I don't think this is an isolated incident. I mean, you go back to Representative Swalwell, and he emphasizing that Charlie Kirk's killer was a straight white male from a Republican family that voted for Donald Trump. In some quarters, there's a very concerted effort to try to lie to the American people about the nature, as you indicate, of one of the most significant, newsworthy public interest acts that we've seen in a long time. And what appears to be an action by Jimmy Kimmel to play into that narrative that this was somehow a MAGA or Republican motivated person. If that's what happened here with his conduct, that is really, really sick. And I've been very clear from the moment that I have become chairman of the FCC. I want to reinvigorate the public interest. And what people don't understand is that the broadcasters, and you've gotten this right, are entirely different than people that use other forms of communication. They have a license granted by us at the FCC, and that comes with it an obligation to operate in the public interest. And we can get into some ways that we've been trying to reinvigorate the public interest and some changes that we've seen. But frankly, when you see stuff like this, I mean, look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. These companies can find ways to change conduct, to take action, frankly, on Kimmel, or, there's going to be additional work for the FCC ahead.
Whoa. Okay. So that was sort of the important thing to hear. We can do this the easy way or we can do this the hard way. But if you're going to sit there and you're going to lie and you're going to say some heinous stuff on network television that the federal government has control over because, yes, they control the airwaves. Now, we're not asking here that it's controlled state media or it's controlled speech. No. Here I am, First Amendment champion. But I am saying, look, when you're dealing with federal airwaves, there's a responsibility there because you're supposed to be serving public interest. So how is it that these comedians have just, gone down such a partisan path? They're no longer funny. They used to poke, fun at all sides, and now they just have one sort of very angry element to their comedy, which is no longer even funny. I mean, just look at the ratings, for goodness sakes. I mean, from a business point of view, boy, oh boy, look at CBS. They're like, phew, we're going to save a ton of money. We're saving tons of money on Colbert because he was costing us $40 million. Some estimates of $50 million, whatever it was. It was many millions too much. Brendan Carr also said something else really, really interesting. And I think that this is now putting Disney in the position where they are at risk for losing affiliate accreditation all over the country, right? The licenses could be revoked. Brendan Carr knows this because, again, it seems as though there is an intentional effort going on to mislead the American people. And that's what we saw from Kimmel. But by the way, we've seen it in a lot of other places too. Watch.
I think, again, Disney needs to see some change here, but the individual licensed stations that are taking their content, it's time for them to step up and say, this, garbage, to the extent that that's what comes down the pipe in the future, isn't something that we think serves the needs of our local communities. But this sort of status quo is obviously not acceptable where we are.
You believe that what Jimmy Kimmel said rises to the level of news distortion?
Look, again, the FCC could be called upon to be an ultimate judge in that, but at this point, I think it's clear. It appears to be clear that you could make a strong argument that this is sort of an intentional effort to mislead the American people about a very core, fundamental fact, a very important matter. At the end of the day, if we do get called upon to cast a vote on this, Disney will have a chance to put in their arguments and explain it, but. This is a very, very, serious issue right now for Disney.
Yeah. Very, very serious issue right now for Disney. So Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, has been warned about this repeatedly. I mean, over and over and over again, right? Like he's been told, he's gotten several letters from Brendan Carr, and then this happened. And I think people just kind of had it, right? Like we're not going to deal with this anymore. I mean, for goodness sakes, we got to deal with the likes of Rachel Maddow and Joy Behar always worrying that they're going to be targeted. We got Whoopi Goldberg saying all kinds of things that are just incredibly inaccurate and incredibly insensitive, frankly, to half of the country. But I want to take you back to this one because what the left is going to do right now, they're going to try and tell you, oh, this is a restriction of speech. They're trying to, make sure that we can't be heard. And I got news for them. There's something else going on, and it has a lot to do with whether you are at a network channel or at a cable channel. I mean, at the cable channel, if you're getting canceled, it's because, well, no one's watching you. Right, Joy? Rachel Maddow, 25 million for you, honey bunny. You are in a ratings, just like tunnel decline. Like it's a disaster over there. And they're paying her allegedly a lot of money. And Jen Psaki, same kind of thing. So at some point, as a business, you're like, this isn't working. We got to try something different. And yet Joy and Rachel seem to think they're one and the same. I got news for Joy. She's going to get canceled possibly for FCC reasons before one Rachel Maddow, who would get canceled for business reasons. Are you following me? Let's watch.
So you said recently that you thought that you, as an outspoken critic, could be a target yourself. Some people think that sounds overdramatic, but I'm right there with you. I think that he is so vindictive that he will go after, however he has to, through the IRS maybe, or even through sponsors to get us off the air maybe, or you. Yeah. How seriously should we be taking that?
Well, so I was asked, am I worried about me? And my answer was, I'm worried about all of us. I'm no more worried about me than I am worried about everybody in the country. I think it's bad to have somebody saying, give me as much power as you can in this country so I can use it to go after other Americans. So I can use it to go after these subhuman internal enemies and I'll destroy them. Like, that's just not a good system for anybody. And I don't think anybody's safe if that's the sort of basis on which he wants to get more power.
Well, remember when Nixon had an enemies list? That was a proud moment for a lot of people if they were on the enemies list. Maybe we need to turn it around like that.
Well, I think that if he decides that he's going to go after you or me or anybody who's well known, we have resources, we'll likely be fine. But I think there's a pattern where he picks out individual people and effectively terrorizes them.
But
I mean, there's Stormy Daniels wearing a bulletproof vest to get into
it's ridiculous.
The courthouse, right?
Once you have political violence, you have fascism following that. So
Okay, here we go with the fascism stuff. That's our favorite line. But the reality is, Disney is in a lot of hot water in more ways than MSNBC. I mean, MSNBC is just struggling financially, right? Let's face it. They can't make any money over there because they can't get any ratings. That's very different than what's going on, say, at The View or at Jimmy Kimmel's show. And I think that's an important distinction that's getting lost in this, especially as the left goes on and on and on and on about how unfair this is. And, this is basically just Donald Trump trying to be an ogre and shut down the speech on the other side. That's not at all what's actually going on. And I think it's critical that we take a step back and we try and understand this. I mean, there's some business reasons, yes, why you'd want Jimmy Kimmel off the air. He's not rating. Nexstar was very upset with the commentary. Sinclair was very upset with the commentary. I don't think they quite, Disney did not quite grasp what a commanding figure and presence and force Charlie Kirk was and what his death symbolizes and means to half of the country. So that's one big error. But then the other big error is, again, them not seeming to get that they can't be Gutfeld over on the Jimmy Kimmel show. They can't be the liberal version of Gutfeld because they are on network television, and it's very different. To go to a soundbite from the guy who is notorious, his claim to fame is Ms. Fang Fang, taken up allegedly with a Chinese spy. The FBI had to contact him about Eric Swalwell. Not the best and the brightest, shall we say, but he's part of the problem. He's trying to suggest that somehow the president doesn't have the authority, that Jimmy Kimmel has the right to be on the air, and that's actually not the case, guys. Watch.
Yeah, Congressman, I see you are wearing a hat. What does that hat say?
You're damn right I am, John. I was a guest on the Jimmy Kimmel show. He every night has a right to come into any house that wants to watch and entertain Americans, just as Greg Gutfeld on Fox has a right to be not funny and go on his network and entertain Americans. It's a part of who we are, John, and frankly, it should shake every American that the President of the United States is out there firing comedians who make fun of him. That is not who we are, and every American should care and stand up to this.
Except that Once again, I got to tell you, he is not that smart. He doesn't seem to fundamentally get the issue here, which is that you cannot actually put misinformation out on public airwaves when it is a network, okay? I get that Rachel Maddow loves doing it and does it all day long over there on MSNBC, but here's the distinction. And by the way, Brendan Carr articulated this very well. In other words, you got the affiliates, right? They get licensed by the government to be running the content from ABC. ABC is the content provider and charges them so that they can run the Jimmy Kimmel Show. And then they have a contractual arrangement where they have to run the Jimmy Kimmel Show. But they're sitting there saying, wait a second, is this really in our interest? Is it in the public interest of our community to be running misinformation? And the short answer to that is no, and they know it, but here's Carr explaining it.
Apart from the idea that you have national programmers that create the show, including the Kimmel Show, and then they're given to and distributed over licensed TV stations. It's the licensed TV stations that have the public interest standard, including those TV stations that Comcast and Disney own. So FCC regulatory action focuses on those individual stations. And one thing that we're trying to do is to empower those local stations to serve their own communities. And the public interest means you can't be running a narrow partisan circus and still meeting your public interest obligations. It means you can't be engaging in a pattern of news distortion. We have a rule on the book that interprets a public interest standard that says news distortion is something that is prohibited. Likewise, we have a rule that addresses broadcast hoaxes. And so, again, over the years, the FCC has stepped back from enforcing it, and I don't think it's been to the benefit of anybody. Just look at the credibility of these legacy media. It's absolutely through the floor. They used to be able to say at least they were more trustworthy than Congress, but now they're even less trustworthy than Congress. And so I think as a business matter for them, something has to change. And at the FCC, we need to reinvigorate this. So again, there's actions that we can take on licensed broadcasters. And frankly, I think that it's really sort of past time that a lot of these licensed broadcasters themselves push back on Comcast and Disney and say, listen, we are going to preempt. We are not going to run Kimmel anymore until you straighten this out, because we licensed broadcaster are running the possibility of fines or license revocation from the FCC if we continue to run content that ends up being a pattern of news distortion. So,
whoa, okay, so that's critical. What he said right there, that's what actually got to them. So Sinclair, which owns a whole bunch, 30 big ABC stations, said, due to problematic comments regarding the murder of Charlie Kirk in programming provided to broadcast stations by ABC, Sinclair and its partners, which operate ABC stations in 30 markets in the United States, will stop airing Jimmy Kimmel's show until further notice. They actually also said that they would be offering forward to all of their channels and to any ABC affiliate that wanted it on Friday nights a tribute to Charlie Kirk's show. So they're trying to do the right thing. They heard Brandon loud and clear. They know what's going on. And by the way, don't forget, a lot of these channels all across the country, they're in conservative markets. And conservatives are like, what the heck is going on, right? So they're not even watching Jimmy. And the affiliate's like, why are we paying for this? Why we could put a local comedian on who's going to do a better job and actually maybe talk about things that are relevant for our viewers. Nexstar came out and said the same thing. They were having nothing to do with this. So you get these big affiliate groups stepping up to the plate in a major way. They said Nexstar strongly objects to recent comments made by Mr. Kimmel concerning the killing of Charlie Kirk and will replace the show with other programming in its ABC affiliated markets. Mr. Kimmel's comments, they wrote, about the death of Mr. Kirk are offensive and insensitive at a critical time in our national political discourse, and we do not believe they reflect the spectrum of opinions, views, or values of our local communities in which we are located. Continuing to give Mr. Kimmel a broadcast platform in the communities we serve is simply not in the public interest at the current time, and we have made the difficult decision to preempt his show in an effort to let cooler heads prevail as we move forward towards the resumption of respectful, constructive dialogue. Good for them, right? Good for them for taking a stand. There's going to be more of this. you watch The View, there's going to be more of this. I'd say, hey, watch out. World News Tonight, there's going to be more of this. And they have the right to stand up to the plate and say, enough is enough. I want to go to the guy who got fired on CNN, but then was somehow rehired by CNN, at least not in an anchor capacity, because believe me, I mean, it's like they don't know how to pick any talent. I mean, this is not a guy you want anchoring a show. Although I'll look over at CNN and say, I don't think I really want any of them anchoring a show. I mean, maybe they have like one, Erin, I like her. We used to work at CNBC together, but the rest of them really and truly do not belong on television. Nonetheless, we'll humor them for a moment and watch Mr. Stelter's interpretation of how this all went down. Take a peek.
What we've heard some other liberals say in recent days, that the motives are unclear and that maybe the suspect in this case was a Republican or was some sort of far-right fringe figure. Of course, there has been...
No, so that's just wrong, okay? That is really and truly just wrong. I want to get up here on the screen for a moment because Mr. Stelter now is lying to you. We knew very well that this kid was not part of the MAGA movement. The shooter was not part of the suspect in this assassination of one Charlie Kirk. He had nothing to do. His parents were conservatives, but he hated everything that Donald Trump and the conservative movement represented. And that was well known. And yet Stelter's on there on CNN last night and trying to mislead you. Now he can, believe it or not, on CNN. That's perfectly fine for him to do if somebody wants to watch it, which, you know, most people don't really want to watch him, and I can't blame them. But nonetheless, that is allowed on CNN. It may not be tasteful, but it's allowed. It's not allowed on broadcast, on ABC News. And this is what this guy, who they call their media reporter, absolutely fails to understand. I mean, this is basics, okay? This is 101. I've worked in network television. I've worked in cable television. And by the way, hallelujah, now I'm working right here, streaming for you. Please make sure you subscribe, share, like, make a comment, all that good stuff, because we're growing and growing, over 1 million strong right now, because I am rejecting all of this. All this partisan nonsense. This guy's up there stumping for the Democrat Party. God knows why, but let's continue.
A lot of discussion about that in recent days. There's a lot of evidence pointing in other directions about the suspect. But Kimmel was on the air talking about this, making a very serious commentary amid his jokes in his monologue Monday night. Here's where it became interesting earlier today. The FCC chairman, Brendan Carr, went on a far-right webcast and condemned Kimmel and urged ABC to suspend him. He also talked about possible regulatory punishments of Disney because there are lots of different stations that have licenses with the FCC. Within the past hour, we've heard from a big owner of stations that have affiliations with ABC, a company called Nexstar, saying that they were going to suspend Kimmel's show on their station. So in other words, about 24 stations were refusing to air Kimmel's show tonight as a result of this controversy. And then, following word that some of those stations were basically revolting against Kimmel, Disney, the parent company of ABC, decided to yank the show entirely.
Da-dun-dun. Okay, you see how that works? Business talks, money talks, but the reality is there's something else bigger going on, and that's that people all over the country have said we've had enough. You know, we elected Donald Trump for a reason. He won the popular vote. He won the electoral college vote. And America's with him, just like America was with Charlie Kirk. And then you get some bitter comedian up there who's just mad because, you know, he can't score a number in ratings to save his life, and his medium is completely dwindling, right? Nobody watches network television anymore. And he's angry and he says some things, and it takes a really dark turn to the point where he's actually promoting disinformation and saying things at a very raw time about a human being that is not true, Charlie Kirk, and about the suspect that, frankly, is not true, trying to paint him as maybe one of Charlie's followers, as somebody who is part of the MAGA movement. That is all wrong. And so it's high time that people speak up. It's high time that affiliates say enough is enough. And that's, again, what you saw with Sinclair. It's what you saw with Nexstar. And so I'll tell you right now, the left, you can lose it all you want over Jimmy Kimmel. He does not have a right to be on the air, as Eric Swalwell states. He can go to MSNBC for that, really and truly. But they're freaking out.
And this is all about jawboning. It's all about public pressure. You know, actually revoking FCC licenses is extremely difficult. I wrote about this last fall when candidate Donald Trump was talking on the campaign trail about wanting to punish stations by taking away their licenses. And throughout the history of the country, ever since we've had broadcast television, license revocations are extraordinarily rare. Once you've got one, you're pretty much guaranteed to keep it. So the threat is not that the FCC is actually going to take away a license. It's about the public noise. It's about the shame and embarrassment. It's about Brendan Carr going on podcasts and embarrassing ABC. You know, there's a term for this. It's jawboning, and that's what we've seen happen today in a very real way. Trump vowed retribution on the campaign trail, and he's getting it. He's getting it against entertainers and comedians. But Aaron, for every reaction, there is a counter reaction. Stephen Colbert has already been joking about getting hired somewhere else. Those jokes mask a very real intention, right? Yeah. Where will he get picked up instead? If Kimmel parts ways with ABC, and again, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Kimmel's contract is coming due soon. Kimmel will probably end up somewhere else. And if big, old-fashioned mainstream media companies don't have the guts to employ these people, then we're going to see startups start to flourish. You know, we talk about the Substack era with people launching newsletters and live streams on YouTube. We're going to see more of that if these old-fashioned media companies can't stand a little bit of pressure from the president.
Yeah, well, I mean, but it is stunning to see such a thing happen and to show.
I will say this. It's way better over here on the other side. It really, really is. And you know, Jimmy, if there's a market for you, which I kind of doubt, but Jimmy, if there is, then hey, be my guest. Come on over here. You can compete against me. We've just been doing this daily, every day, religiously for almost 2 years. And guess what? We're up over 1 million subs. We had nearly 1 million people watching yesterday's show. I mean, incredible, right? So, hey, come on over here. I'll welcome the competition. I don't think you can do it. I mean, unless what? You're going to get 40 staff writers to help you with your really bad jokes. Think about that, guys. He had all those people that would have been helping him with this, working on this with him. How is it that you have an entire staff that doesn't see that something might be wrong with your commentary? That it had already been disproven that Larry Tribe, the Harvard guy, right, considered such a great constitutional law professor, he had to come out and apologize because he tried to suggest exactly what Jimmy Kimmel suggested, and that had happened at least a day before, maybe a couple days before. In other words, this was a deliberate move, and it tells you that everybody around Jimmy Kimmel on his little show there, not so little, they have a lot of people working there, little in terms of ratings, but they all agreed, and they all thought this was perfectly appropriate. And that gives you a special insight, if you would, right, into Disney. And it shows you how gross and twisted these companies have become with their woke ideology and their TDS. That's all it is, guys. TDS. They're out there. Oh, you know, we need free speech. We need free speech. We need free speech. Remember what they did to Tucker Carlson? You remember what they did to me? Oh, yeah. It was a little strange. When Bette Midler is like tweeting at you and Deborah Messing is tweeting at you all this hate, and other people that you watch on entertainment television shows, like me in my personal life, I'm like, what is going on? When Seth Meyers makes me a segment in his show and people are demanding that Trish Regan be fired because she said, gosh, I think we're overreacting here to the whole March 2020 situation. For goodness sakes, you don't want to shut down an entire country. No. I mean, just because CNN has their plain story. And I predicted that it would come with serious political consequences for Donald Trump and that the left was trying to make the most of it for political reasons. And guess what? I was right. So they jumped at trying to cancel me. And now they think that Jimmy Kimmel, by the way, I was on cable, okay? Total cable land. I had every right to be saying that. It's an opinion show, for goodness sakes, on cable. I wasn't working on network television. And yet they think that Jimmy has a right to be on the air.
Senator Schumer, your reaction to this?
It is outrageous. It's a page right out of Xi's playbook. This is just despicable, disgusting, and against democratic values. Trump and his allies seem to want to shut down speech that they don't like to hear. That is not what democracies do. That is what autocracies do. And it doesn't matter whether you agree with Kimmel or not. He has the right to free speech. And so it is just outrageous. It is indicative of autocracy. And I am just outraged by it. Again, this is what dictators do. This is what Xi would do. This is what Putin would do. We are not that country.
I'm laughing. And you know why I'm laughing? Because I remember a time when that same guy was really campaigning hard to get Tucker Carlson off the air, because Tucker Carlson was trying to talk about J6 in a way that, well, the left didn't like very much, because there was only one side to that story as far as they were concerned. Remember, Chucky boy?
Continue tonight. Rupert Murdoch, who has admitted they were lies and said he regretted it, has a special obligation to stop Tucker Carlson from going on tonight, now that he's seen how he has perverted and slimed the truth, and from letting him go on again and again and again. Not because their views deserve such opprobrium, but because our democracy depends on it.
Yeah, it's just sort of funny. You got it, right? I mean, they're just trying to seize upon this as an opportunity. They wanted to squash everybody else. Believe me, I'm sure that Fox got plenty of calls from plenty of people. Trish can't say that. Trish can't say that. Oh my gosh, why is Trish saying that? Oh my gosh. Well, you know what? Trish will say whatever Trish wants to say. I don't care. It gets me in trouble. What do I care? You know what? I don't need them. I need you. And I need the truth. And that's what we're about here. Okay? Truth only. And I have an opinion, and you'll know about it. You'll know it loud and clear, believe me. I wear it right there, proudly on my sleeve. I'll try and show you everything else. I try to explain everything. I mean, what these guys don't seem to remember is that in cable, you can say whatever you want. In network television, you can't. Okay? Again, FCC rules. It's why you can't swear on network television. You can actually on cable, believe it or not. And I guess you could over here, though. We always try and make sure that we have a presentable enough show, just in case my kids wanted to watch. AOC, she was on to Tucker as much as she could to try and get him fired, going on to MSNBC saying he doesn't have a right to say these things. Again, it's cable. He has every right to say whatever he wants.
Very real issues with what is permissible on air.
Media organizations or social media platforms should be accountable for the role for being platforms for incitement.
I believe that when it comes to broadcast television, like Fox News, these are subject to federal law, federal regulation in terms of what's allowed on air and what isn't. And when you look at what Tucker Carlson and some of these other folks on Fox do, it is very, very clearly incitement of violence. Very clearly incitement of violence. And that is the line that I think we have to be willing to contend with.
I only point this out because the same crowd calling for Tucker to be fired, calling for Trish Regan, I mean, the New York Times, Daily Beast or whatever it's called, all these rag sheets as well. The New York Times is a rag too these days. They wanted me fired. They wanted Tucker fired. They were successful. I think, both Tucker and I would look back and say, good riddance, right? It all worked out for the best. I mean, certainly for me, because I've been able to come over here and do all of this with you and be part of this new media movement, which is just amazing. And I think talented people can do that. People that are not talented, they need the networks. They need the cable networks or the networks because, well, that's really, frankly, all they're capable of doing. AOC, though, let me go back to her because when Tucker got fired, she was like screaming from the rooftops. She was so happy.
But deplatforming works, and it is important. And there you go. Good things can happen.
Good things can happen. Yeah, I think it's, funny that they forget that we have this little thing called tape. This little thing called tape. So they wanted Tucker gone. They wanted Trish gone. They were successful in those endeavors. They do not want Jimmy Kimmel gone, even though he actually spoke misinformation on a network television show where you actually really and truly, you got to be a little careful on the opinion there. When you're delivering World News Tonight, you got to be a little careful. When you're doing the Jimmy Kimmel show, you can't actually just blatantly spout a whole bunch of lies because, again, it's not in the public interest. And you look at those local markets all over the country in places where they absolutely love Charlie Kirk and they love Donald Trump and they're sick of it and it's reached a tipping point. Brandon Carr going on Hannity's show last night, actually, to again try and explain to these Dems the difference and why the FCC has a heck of a lot of power here. And it's not about, just to be very clear, it's not about, okay, we're going to sing the praises of Donald Trump, but let's not spout a bunch of misinformation about Charlie Kirk before he's even in the ground, for goodness sakes.
Yeah, broadcasters are different than any other form of communication, including here. We're on cable right now. Fox News doesn't have an FCC license. CNN doesn't. But ABC, CBS, NBC, those broadcast stations do. And with that license comes a unique obligation to operate in the public interest. And over the years, the FCC walked away from enforcing that public interest obligation. I don't think we're better off as a country for it. But look, President Trump ran directly at these legacy broadcast outlets, and he exposed them to these market forces. And a lot of these affiliate groups said, to your point, we're tired of carrying this stuff. Late night shows, something's gone seriously awry there. They went from going for applause, from laugh lines to applause lines. They went from being court jesters that would make fun of everybody in power to being court clerics and enforcing a very narrow political ideology. And Nexstar, as you noted, stood up and said, look, we have the license and we don't want to run this anymore. We don't think it serves the interests of our community. Sinclair did the same thing. So there's more work to go, but I'm very glad to see that America's broadcasters are standing up to serve the interests of their community. We don't just have this progressive foie gras coming out from New York and Hollywood.
I love it too. I love seeing that these affiliates are standing up and they're saying, we don't need this on the air. What are you doing to giving us this garbage? And it's garbage. I mean, Brandon Carr called it garbage, by the way. Do I have that soundbite? Have we played that soundbite? I mean, this was fantastic. He's just like, listen, this is a bunch of junk. And you know what? We don't deserve to be watching this junk. We don't have to watch this junk. Quick shout out for something that's definitely not junk. All good ingredients that you can actually understand when you read the back of the label. And that would be for Balance of Nature, one of our wonderful sponsors here on the Trish Regan Show. We thank you for all they do to allow me to bring you this show for free every day over streaming. There are no network satellite trucks here. I remember those days. I'd go cover a hurricane or cover a political event. We had to have all these satellite trucks. Guess what? It's a whole new game, baby, right here in the streaming world. So I'm proud to be part of it, excited to be part of it, and proud to have Balance of Nature as a sponsor alongside me with it. This is good stuff. Again, like I said, you turn over the back of the bottle, you can read the ingredients, you understand what it's saying, and that's because the ingredients are the ingredients. And, there's something to be said for that. So I encourage you to take a look at this. One of the best parts about taking the fruits and veggies is you get all those fruits and veggies. I think there's like 31 different kinds. And the benefit is you don't have to go out and buy them all or chop them all up for that matter. I don't like that. It's busy work. I don't really like the busy work that's involved in cooking. Although I joke that, if things go the other way, with Donald Trump, we really need to hope that the Republicans stay in office, because I have a feeling that the lefties will get really crazy with their cancel culture and they'll come back with a vengeance. And then I will have to be chopping vegetables because I will have to do a cooking show for you. Because the beauty of this moment in time is that I finally get to say exactly what I think. when I think it, right? And that's a wonderful place for all of us to be. And that really is free speech. Balance in Nature, 35% off with code Trish plus free shipping. The public is really angry about this story. It's not just what you're seeing, right, from Sinclair and Nexstar, but now we're actually seeing the public starting to call for a total boycott of Disney. Now, we've seen this before. I mean, think about Bud Light, think about Target. And those companies really suffered. And they still haven't recovered, for goodness sakes, at either Target or at Bud Light. Cracker Barrel, great example there. We saw a big boycott push at Cracker Barrel. And what did they do? They brought back the logo, so the guy, I guess he's the cracker who's sitting on the barrel. He's allowed to be on there again. And they're not going through with all those renovations that just made them look like a fancy Burger King after all. So that was a smart response. They listened to their audience or to their customers, and they responded in kind. It took Bud Light a whole lot longer to do that. And so the damage was done. And frankly, who needs Bud Light when you can have Coors Light? It was a very easily changeable thing. And so we saw that company really suffer the consequences. They're still not over it. So now what happens to Disney? Disney's a little different, right? Because there's only one Disney World, there's only one Disneyland. I would say it's not worth going anymore. There's probably it's not worth it. It's too expensive. There's long lines. It's just not worth it. As for Disney overall and the entertainment product they put out, I think even they've figured it out. They can't quite get it right. They can't get it right. They can't actually make a movie anymore, because they're so twisted with their wokeism. They try and do Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, but you can't call them dwarfs. So why don't we just call them the Seven People, and they can be all different heights. And now the small people community is all upset because now they've just offended them, and the actors that are in that community were like, wait a second, we were waiting for this movie gig our whole lives, and now you're taking away from us. Well, now Americans are increasingly saying, we don't need Disney, we don't want Disney, let's boycott Disney. Okay, so let me go to this. Let me show you what we've got on the screen. They're saying, it's affiliated with ABC. Yes, Disney owns ABC, okay? So boycott alert. Disney ABC just caved and pulled Jimmy Kimmel for political reasons. Nexstar, which owns the CW and 200 plus local ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox stations, is part of the same machine. Boycott Disney. Now, I'm not sure if this person is actually on the left or the right. I actually think they got a real problem here, because I think people on the left are furious with Disney. They're going to say, oh, you caved. How could you? You know what? How dare you do this? And so they're mad. And consequently, if they're mad, they're going to say, we're going to boycott Disney. And you get those of us on the right that are saying, well, they can't make a good product. They're so obsessed with wokeism and DEI in all of their movies right now that it's really kind of not worth going and watching. And thus, we're boycotting them. I told you guys about Halloween a few years ago. I've showed you the pictures. Gosh, maybe I should show them again. I went looking for My Son Likes to Run. And you remember that show, The Incredibles, where one of the superpowers was running and he really liked that character, Dash? Yeah, well, Disney, makes the costume, right? Disney is where you need to go to buy the costume. And so I was trying to find a costume for my son. And I went, let's see, this was just a couple years ago. Unbelievable. Take a look at this. Boys' costumes. I'm on my computer looking for a boys' costume on Disney. And what is the first thing that comes up? You tell me. The Belle costume for kids. I'm looking under boys' costumes, mind you. And I get the Aladdin princess thing. Everything's a princess. And I at this point, I'm getting kind of confused. I'm like, what are you guys trying to do here? Well, I think we know what they were trying to do. We know exactly what they were trying to do. And this is Disney's entire problem, right? This was under the old Bob. Now we get Bob 2.0. He's actually the original Bob that's come back into the job. But there was a real effort to wokeify this company. And people were speaking out, and now you're seeing this boycott. I mean, it was crazy to me. It was totally crazy. Oh, here's another picture, guys. Let me show you this one. Look at this. I'm like, okay, these are boys' costumes. I underlined that in red for you. Boys' costumes. Yeah, I got to show this to Brandon because he's doing an investigation into some of their practices on the DEI front that would be, I think, of interest to him to know this. The first thing you find when you go to boys' costumes or all these princess costumes, I think I had to go to girls' costumes to find the costume for the boy that is the Dash costume in The Incredibles. So they had an agenda. They were pushing this agenda nonstop, and they consequently wound up firing some people that didn't agree with their agenda. I mean, remember what happened when Gina Carano wouldn't go along with their pronoun nonsense?
When I wouldn't hashtag trans rights and I wouldn't put my pronouns in, like, they kept on it pressuring. And finally, I just said, I'm not doing this, you know, like, I'm not, like, what are the pronouns? I didn't even know what people were talking about. I was just not clued in to the pronouns thing, which apparently that's been happening for like 7-8 years now, right? It's been happening.
But no one has ever explained its purpose. What I mean,
I didn't know.
You're just supposed to know.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, you're a bigot.
Yeah. Well, then I put beep bop boop in my
beep bop boop.
Yeah.
So that, if I'm translating, that just means middle finger to you, right?
That just meant I can put anything I want in my bio. I can do whatever I want. That's all that was.
Because you thought it was a free country.
Yeah, because I thought it was. Yes.
Yeah, right.
But I was
just trying to follow your train of reasoning here.
Yeah, you can put anything in your bio that you want, and the whole, meltdown that caused was just, I mean, and then, in
a bad way, or are people impressed? I'm impressed.
No, I mean, it's cool now, but this was like a year and a half ago. So this was like, I was speaking out about lockdowns, mass vaccinations, and pronouns way before anybody was even like saying a word about it. And so I was a little bit ahead. I'm sure if I would have done that now, it wouldn't have been a big deal. But because I was talking about this when nobody else was talking about it, especially nobody else in my industry, it was like, Lucasfilm called me and they were like, okay, we're going to need you to go on a Zoom call with 45 of our, LGBTQ, community. And we have to get you on the phone with these people. We need to have you watch all of these these movies about the trans lives, documentaries. And I was like, okay, I'll watch your documentaries and I'll talk to your people. But I'm not going to get on a Zoom call with 45 different people who can have their phones out videotaping me. And I feel like that's extremely abusive.
She's right, it was. And, she's a public figure and I think she's empathetic and sensitive, but she wasn't about to do that. And so they fired her. They fired her, okay? Disney fired her. And you know who had a hand in that firing? Look at all the little, I'm going to go back to this in a second because I want you to remember just exactly who she is. She's the little Rachel Zegler ingenue from New Jersey. They should have just stayed in New Jersey. Why they ever thought to put her in Hollywood? I mean, she's got a cute little voice and she did fine in West Side Story. Snow White was a disaster and it's all because of this woman. And, you'll see what I mean. She's just annoying as all you know what.
I mean, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
So no Prince or a different kind of Prince?
We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story just because, we cast a guy in the movie. Right. Andrew Burnap, great dude. Yeah. It's one of those things that I think everyone's going to have their assumptions about what it's actually going to be, but it's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
Yeah, Hollywood, baby. And you actually threatened the franchise of the entire studio with It's Hollywood, Baby, because that was such a disaster. And you, Rachel Zegler, were just such a disaster in that film. Although I think the blame goes all around because the script was awful. The songs were awful. The acting was awful. I mean, it was just a terrible, terrible movie. But she had a big hand in getting Gina Carano fired because after Gina was like, well, I don't need to do this thing on pronouns. I'm going to go with beep, bop, boop. She said, do not make fun of pronouns. They are not a joke. Pronouns are validating. Pronouns are cool. Put your pronouns in your bio. I wear my pronouns on a button. Sometimes it's a good thing. Bye. Whoa. You know what I tell my kids? Well, I tell anybody. You want to ask me my pronouns? What do you think? My name is Trish. okay? And I look like this. I think it's obvious what my pronouns are. And if you have to ask, then, there's something wrong with you. They want to, deconstruct the language. I'll tell you a funny story. So one of my girls was in a summer program, and she had an English teacher. And my daughter's brilliant, and she's just an incredible student. And she probably could have been teaching this class in English better than the teacher, I guarantee you. Actually, I'm certain of it. Anyway, she, got the form for her pronouns, and she's not playing that game, right? She left it blank. And at the end of the semester, or the summer program, there's a write-up about her and how brilliant she is and how phenomenal her writing and her insights and this and that and the other. And it says they everywhere instead of she and her. So I send it to my mom, who still wishes Hillary Clinton won. Jesse Waters and I have that in common, okay? So I send it to my mom. My mom's looking at it, and she's like, no, I don't understand. Where's Elizabeth's recommendation? Where's her write-up? And I'm like, no, Mom, that's your party, okay? That's one of your peeps, all right? They're writing about your granddaughter as they, because your granddaughter didn't check off the she. It's like a form of punishment, right? If you don't play their game, they're going to force you somehow, some way to play their stupid asinine game. Unbelievable. Let me just tell you, as somebody who's a professor of English, you ought to actually care about the English language, because we're getting to the point where grammatically you guys just don't make any sense anymore. Oh, and that's just English. You want to go into Italian? You want to go into Spanish? I mean, you got masculine, feminine, everything. I mean, you're just going to completely revamp all of that too? That's why Latinx cracks me up. These people, it's like they got nothing else to talk about. They got nothing else to complain about. So they go down a rabbit hole on pronouns, and it's stupid, okay? Just so darn stupid. And they fire Gina Carano over that. Crazy. Well, Zegler got her comeuppance, right? Zegler got what she deserved in the end, because I don't think she's going to really be able to work in Hollywood anymore. She's such a train wreck and did a horrible job. I mean, how could you ruin Snow White? Somehow she managed to. It's like they just don't get it, okay? Like Disney, you're a company, you're a business. You can't have Jimmy Kimmel on the air saying horrible things about Charlie Kirk before he's even dead and buried. I mean, he's dead. He's not buried. We're having the funeral on Sunday. Don't forget. And the country's grieving. This morning I was driving my kids to school. And you know that song by Don McLean, Bye Bye, Miss America Pie? And it talks about the widowed bride. And I just started bawling. I have my sunglasses on. I'm like, okay, I got to get through this, right? Because I got to get them to school. But I started crying again because I feel so terrible for the country and so terrible, obviously, for Charlie. And I feel privileged to have known him and to have been one of the first people to put him on TV. I feel terrible for his family, for his children that will never get to know him, for his wife and the love that they had and what could have been, and for this movement. And the song got to me. Most of the lyrics in the song don't really make much sense, but the beginning and talking about the widowed bride, and you think back to what happened with JFK and how the country was back then, and I think about what's going on now, and we're in a tough spot. But this is what, as a normal human being, you should ought to understand. This is what Jimmy Kimmel should have gotten, right? Like, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that the country's in a very fragile state. And people don't want to hear you trash Charlie right now, okay? And they certainly don't want misinformation about Charlie out there. So Jimmy Kimmel, you could have acted better, and your entire production team around you that is run by Disney, they could have acted a whole lot better. And for the left to try and say this is about the president muzzling free speech, give me a break. It has nothing to do with that. And entirely to do with FCC rules and regulations. And you know what? If you want to say that kind of stuff, Jimmy, then come compete against me, okay? Over here on YouTube. We'll see how well you do. Go over to MSNBC. It's a sinking ship if I ever saw one, right? That's where you get to do all your CRAP, because nobody wants it on network television. There are boycott calls on all sides now. Disney, you're in a very, very bad spot. But you know what? It's your own doing, for goodness sakes. Bob Iger, you know what? Grow a pair. For goodness sakes, you should have had the decency, the common sense to get a handle on this before it became too crazy. I'll tell you, this guy got a break. I mean, I think he's going to get to live another day, because the critics before Jimmy Kimmel came out saying what he was saying, they were going after this guy, a guy I'd never heard of. But, I don't watch a lot of network TV anymore because it's so biased and it's so scripted and it's so trite. So this, I think he's kind of a moron. He must fancy himself some kind of, sonnet composer. I don't know. Matt Gutman is his name. And he went on television and tried to wax poetic about the text messages between the suspect in the Charlie Kirk murder and his roommate. And we're going with roommate, like I said, because we're trying to keep it clean. But, it's a little more than roommate. The guy was in the middle of transitioning, and apparently there's some kind of romantic relationship between two of them. I have that on very good sources from the FBI, and I believe that's been printed as well. Anyway, my FBI sources tell me this guy's not out of the woods, the roommate. But you look at this text exchange. I am still okay, my love, but I am stuck in Orem for a while. My love, my love. Oh, I am sorry. I thought they caught the person. You weren't the one who did it, right? I am. I'm sorry. Full confession there, which is a little weird for a kid who's like a 4.0. And had like a 36 on the ACT, the equivalent of 1500, 1550. In SAT land, I mean, he was smart, right? Why would you be sending this on Discord? I wonder. So they've got all of this stuff. And, the roommate's like, how long have you been planning this? And the guy says, a bit over a week. I can get close to it, but there's a squad car, blah, 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 blah. So he's going on. He said, in some cases, there's violence. Here, let me get you that quote. It was pretty gross what he said. I mean, this is gross, disgusting. And I'm not even talking about the romantic part, whatever you think of that. Let's just talk about the fact that he killed another human being. Because he feels like, in some cases that there is a reason for violence. He must have been listening to the Oxford Union debater guy who said sometimes you need violence to destroy these institutions. At some point he said he just couldn't take it anymore, and he felt like this was the appropriate move. Again, somehow the justification, right, of this violence. It's pretty sick stuff. And yet this ABC reporter gets there on TV and says, what? Excuse me? Here we go, Mr. Matt Gutman.
We have seen an alleged murder with such specific text messages about the alleged murder weapon, where it was hidden, how it was placed, what was on it, but also it was very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect. A very intimate portrait into this relationship between the suspect's roommate and the suspect himself, with him repeatedly calling his roommate, who is transitioning, calling him my love. And I wonder,
was he hard up for content? Were they trying to fill time there on ABC and they didn't know what else to talk about? I mean, he thinks he's going to dissect this as though it's some kind of English paper. This is gross stuff, okay? This is gross stuff, and yet he calls it touching.
Protect you, my love. So it was this duality of someone who the attorney said not only jeopardized the life of Charlie Kirk and the crowd, but was doing it in front of children, which is one of the aggravating circumstances of this case. And on the other hand, he was, speaking so lovingly about his partner. So a very interesting and, as Pierre said, riveting press conference, David.
It was tough.
Oh, it was. Did you also hear he said jeopardizing the life of Charlie Kirk? How about killing, murdering, assassinating Charlie Kirk, whose only goal in life was to encourage honest dialogue, civil debate, to have a nonviolent conversation about all the different things you can think, and maybe try and convince some people to come around to his point of view. I mean, the public is disgusted with ABC at this point. This guy gets out there. He's trying to, do some damage control. Yesterday, I tried to underscore the jarring contrast between this cold-blooded assassination of Charlie Kirk, a man who dedicated his life to public dialogue. Smart of you, right? You see what's happening to Jimmy. And the personal disturbing text read out loud by Utah County attorney at the press conference. I deeply regret that my words did not make that clear. But let there be zero doubt here. I unequivocally condemn this horrific crime and the pain it caused Charlie Kirk's family, those who were forced to witness it at UVU, and the millions of people that he inspired. Okay, Good. I'm glad you apologized. I'm not so sure it's enough, though. And I think the reason it's not enough is that we're all sitting there going, hey, you know what, Disney, you got a problem. Hey, Disney, we're sick of you firing people like Gina Carano because she doesn't want to go along with your woke insanity. We're sick of, people firing, Tucker Carlson even because he tried to present a different point of view. Although I'll tell you this, he wasn't on network television. We're sick of people trying to cancel Trish Regan because Trish Regan had actually the common sense to say maybe we should step back here and not shut down the country in a national shutdown right now. I mean, you look around the world at other countries that did things differently. Sweden comes to mind, right? Where the elderly stayed in and the young and healthy still went about their business because you can't just shut everything down. Anyway, I digress. That was a long time ago and it all worked out for the best because I'll tell you, I wouldn't trade my position in the world ever. What I'm able to do over here with you guys is actually pretty darn incredible and exciting and very, very, very rewarding. But I would say that there's a lot of cancel culture out there and it's flourished on the other side. And now they have the audacity, really and truly the audacity to come back and say that this is a free speech thing. No, it's not. You can't just get on network television, even as a comedian, and lie like that. I would also note that that was actually kind of a serious speech that he was giving at the time. And so things have to change, all right? They just have to change. And they're going to make this their thing, okay? Here's one of the MSNBC people going on and on about it. They don't get it. They just don't get it. They don't understand the distinction between network television and cable television. Here we go. This is some guy, Camus or something. Camus Bell, do I have that right? Here we go.
Okay. But what are some of your general thoughts about what this means for your profession?
So let's be clear that the stand-up comedy as we all understand it, the modern era stand-up comedy only existed in America because of free speech. It was invented here, stand-up comedy the way the world understands it, grew up in America because of freedom of speech. And then the early comedians in the modern era, Lenny Bruce, George Carlin, Richard Pryor, Dick Gregory, fought the battles, some of whom got arrested. Lenny Bruce got arrested in San Francisco over fighting the battle for being a stand-up comedian who's free to say what you want to say. So if we are the powers that be, Trump and the Trumpettes, have decided that comedians can't say what they want to say anymore, they're fundamentally redefining America as a place that I don't want to live. Forget want to be a comedian, but it's not, that's a fundamental right. I work for the ACLU too, so it's a fundamental right that if this country does not have free speech, we're not America. And I also think it's funny, Jimmy Kimmel's not exactly young Lenny Bruce, you know what I mean? So if you're saying that guy can't do it, maybe I should have put on a different shirt.
Okay. Again, I just want to go back to, and let me change the lower third here, to the boycott that's happening and the reality of where we are right now. What I want to go back to is the distinction, and this is an important one, between free speech, okay, and network television and FCC rules. Because you're supposed to be serving a community interest. Do you think when you have 99% of the coverage all being negative on one side and 99% of it being positive on the other side, you're actually serving the community interest when, what do you know happened? Donald Trump won both the popular vote and the Electoral College? No, you're not. You're actually just consumed with TDS and the things that they have been allowed to say and that they continue to broadcast on network television, effectively equating him with some of the most heinous people in all of history. Donald Trump, that is. That's not right. You can't go do that on cable. Go do that on your podcast. Go do that. I'm willing to take you on right here on YouTube. Okay? And you see if there's a market for that. If there's a market for that, fine. You don't even have a market on network television for it. I mean, you know how happy they are to be getting rid of Stephen Colbert and the millions of dollars that he was costing them? They're happy to get rid of Jimmy Kimmel. Trust me. What a waste. I mean, think about what Greg Gutfeld does with a tiny staff in comparison to these network shows that are all union run and they're paying big money to cameramen that they don't even need. Guess what? I don't have a cameraman in my studio. I have a camera. occasionally it goes out. Then I'm the cameraman. And I have to wait for you guys. I mean, look, I'm not saying that, that's the ideal. Trust me. But it's amazing what you can do, frankly, with very, very little. And that is because the world is changing. So get on board. Please join me here on the Trish Regan channel. Subscribe. You know where else you need to join me? You need to take a look at my newsletter. It's called 76 Research. 76research.com. We just put a note out about the Fed, of course, because they lowered rates, which hopefully will transcend into a little bit more economic activity, lower mortgage rates, etc. for everyone. I do encourage you to go to 76 Research. The other place you can go to for the free one is investinmaga.com. I'm going to put that on the screen, investinmaga.com for you right now. But I'm a big believer in everybody taking care of themselves and finding ways to invest for yourself and plan for your future. And so this is a big part of what we do, myself and my partner there at 76 Research. So go take a look at that. That is my newsletter. We just put a piece out yesterday, again, on those interest rates. I do tell you though, guys, we're in a very different time and it's good, okay? It's good what's happening because I am hopeful that people are going to come back to reality. I'm hearing some people are really, really mad that, or rather on his team, that Jimmy's off and Jimmy's apparently like really, really mad and threatening to go somewhere else. And he's already got a job lined up and this, that, and the other. He actually hasn't said anything publicly. I suspect that's because he's under contract and it would be construed as being in violation of the contract. So he's not going to speak until he actually can speak. I went through the same thing. Once they say, okay, we're separating or parting ways, there's not a lot you can do until you are effectively allowed to do so, or you forfeit a lot of money. I think Tucker Carlson had a similar experience because it was a little while before he spoke up. I'll tell you this, I didn't come to any settlement. I wasn't willing to take a single dime from anyone to be shut up about anything. So I can speak freely, and I do speak freely about everything I went through. I think it's an important sort of lesson for the future. If a young person came to me today and said, I want to go into journalism, I want to go into TV, I would say, forget the networks, forget cable television. You come straight here. You go straight to YouTube. You do a podcast, you go to new media. Streaming is where it's at. You will be happier. You have authenticity, transparency, and it's all on you. If you're good enough, if you work hard enough, you'll make it. This is a little bit more of a meritocracy, dare I say. Anyway, thank you for being here, everyone, and being part of this channel. We will continue the conversation again tomorrow. I know, no love lost. You're happy to see him go. Me too.